Welcome to this audiobook. This story is written in very simple English so that everyone can understand it, even if you are still learning. If you are able to follow the story till the end, then congratulations. Your English is already 50% good. And the best part is, you will not just learn English, but you will also hear a story full of mystery, emotions, betrayal, secrets, and how even the safest relationships can become dangerous battlefields. Trust no one, not even your own womb. So, sit back, relax, and let's start the story. The Surrogate Secret by Amjad. Linda and John looked like the perfect couple. They were rich. They were powerful, and they had a big house full of everything, except a baby. Linda had tried for years to get pregnant. Doctors, tests, treatments, nothing worked. Her heart ached every time she saw a child. John said he supported her, but behind his smile he was getting tired. Their marriage was quiet now. No laughter. Just empty rooms and cold dinners. Then one day, Linda said something surprising. "What if we try a surrogate?" John blinked. "A surrogate? A woman who can carry our baby," she said. "We'll use my egg and your sperm. It will still be our child." John agreed. They looked through profiles. Chose a young woman named Jennifer. She was kind, healthy, and had beautiful features. But behind Jennifer's warm smile was a secret. She wasn't just a stranger. She was John's mistress. And John had already made her pregnant, without Linda knowing. But Linda, she had secrets too. Bigger ones. Jennifer was a waitress when she first met John. He came to the restaurant often, always alone. At first he just smiled. Then he started talking. He asked questions about her life, her dreams. He listened to her. Jennifer was young, struggling, and had no family. She liked the attention. She liked how important he made her feel. Soon, they began seeing each other outside the restaurant. John said he was in a cold marriage. He said Linda had changed. He said he was lonely. Jennifer believed him. She thought he truly cared. They started a secret relationship. When Jennifer got pregnant, she panicked. She told John. She thought he would be angry, but instead he looked thoughtful. He asked her not to tell anyone. He said he would take care of everything. A few weeks later, John came to her with an idea. He said he had talked to Linda about using a surrogate. He said they would pay someone to carry their baby. Then he asked Jennifer if she would be the surrogate. Jennifer was shocked. He told her it was the perfect solution. She would be paid, and no one would know the baby was actually his. Jennifer agreed. She needed the money, and part of her still loved him. Meanwhile, Linda was preparing for the embryo transfer. She told the doctors to prepare her eggs and John's sperm. But Linda had her own plan. She had been seeing someone else too. A quiet, kind man named Eric. Linda had never told anyone about him. He made her feel alive again. She knew John had grown distant, but she didn't know about Jennifer. Linda secretly asked the lab to switch the sperm. Instead of John's, she used Eric's. She wanted a child, but not with John. She had stopped trusting him long ago. She wanted to be a mother, but she didn't want John to be the father. But something went wrong. Jennifer was never implanted with the embryo from the clinic. The doctors believed she was. Linda believed she was. But Jennifer was already pregnant with John's baby. The timing was perfect. No one questioned it. They thought the clinic's embryo had worked. Months passed. Jennifer lived in a separate house, paid for by Linda and John. Linda visited sometimes, asking about the baby, checking Jennifer's health. But Jennifer always felt nervous around her. Linda was cold, polite, but never warm. Jennifer knew Linda didn't truly care. She just wanted the baby. John was different. He would visit alone sometimes. He brought gifts. He talked to the unborn baby, smiling like a real father. Jennifer started to feel like she was part of something bigger. She believed that maybe, after the baby was born, John would be with her. Maybe this was their chance. But Linda had already guessed something. She saw how John looked at Jennifer. She noticed the small things, how he asked too many questions, how he showed too much care. Linda started watching them closely. She became more distant, more calculating. She was carrying her own secret. The baby growing in Jennifer's womb. Linda believed it was hers. But she didn't know that Jennifer had never received the embryo from the clinic. She didn't know that Jennifer was already pregnant with John's child. So now, both women believed the baby was theirs. But both were wrong in different ways. And the truth was waiting to come out. The pregnancy continued without problems, at least on the outside. Jennifer went to her checkups, took the vitamins the doctors gave her, and followed all the instructions. She stayed in the house Linda and John had arranged for her. It was clean and quiet, but she often felt lonely. The walls were painted soft colors. The fridge was always full, and everything looked perfect, but something always felt strange. It didn't feel like home. She kept thinking about the baby growing inside her. Sometimes she placed her hand on her belly and whispered small promises. She told the baby that life would be different, that maybe they would be together, that maybe John would leave Linda, and they could be a real family. But other times, doubt entered her mind. What if John was just using her? What if she gave birth and was told to disappear? John continued visiting her in secret. He always acted warm and loving. He would sit with her for hours, asking about the baby's kicks, listening to the heartbeat during her doctor appointments. He told her again and again that he loved her, and that the baby was a miracle. Jennifer wanted to believe him, but there were moments when his phone would ring, and he would quickly silence it. He never stayed the night. He never made real promises. Only soft words that disappeared when the door closed. Linda had grown more silent. Her visits became shorter. She stopped asking personal questions. She only asked for medical updates and watched Jennifer carefully, like someone watching a stranger. She never smiled at Jennifer's small jokes or touched her belly the way John did. She always stood straight, hands folded, her eyes sharp. She didn't show much emotion, but her mind was working quietly, all the time. Linda began doing something else too. She started talking to a private doctor, not connected to the clinic. She said she wanted a second opinion, just to be careful. But in truth, she wanted to run her own tests. She gave her blood samples again. She checked the embryo records from the clinic. She spoke to a technician who remembered a change in the process, something strange about the paperwork. That's when she began to worry. She found that her embryo may have never been used. At first, she thought it was a mistake, maybe a lab error. But then, a small idea began growing inside her. What if someone had done it on purpose? What if someone had cheated her? She didn't trust the clinic anymore. She didn't trust Jennifer. And now, for the first time, she didn't even trust John. She waited. She stayed quiet. She didn't show her fear. She didn't want John or Jennifer to suspect anything. She started watching their behavior more closely. The way John talked about the baby, the way he avoided her touch, the way Jennifer looked at him when she thought no one was watching. The final days of the pregnancy came quickly. Jennifer went into labor in the middle of the night. John was there, pacing outside the delivery room. Linda arrived a little later, dressed neatly, her face calm. But her heart was not calm. It was racing. After several hours, the baby was born. A baby boy. Everyone was quiet at first. Then the doctor spoke. There was something unusual. The baby had a condition, a rare genetic disorder, one that only happens if both parents carry the same hidden gene. John and Linda were tested immediately. That was when everything began to fall apart. The tests showed something shocking. John was not the biological father. His DNA did not match the child. But Linda's did. Linda was the biological mother. That was impossible. Or at least it should have been. Because Jennifer was supposed to be carrying an embryo made from Linda's egg and John's sperm. But now the truth stood in front of them, proven by science. Linda was the mother. John was not the father. So the big question came forward. Whose baby was this? And how had this happened? Everyone had their secrets. But now those secrets were fighting to come out. After the shocking DNA test results, silence fell between the three of them. No one knew what to say. The doctors tried to explain the findings gently, but the truth was clear. Linda was the biological mother. John was not the father. Jennifer, the woman who had carried the baby, was not related to the baby at all. At least that's what the test showed. Jennifer was in shock. She sat in her hospital bed, holding the baby, staring at him. She had felt him move inside her. She had given birth to him. How could he not be her baby? She had believed all these months that the child growing inside her was hers and John's, that she had given something to this life. Now, it felt like her body had been used for something she never agreed to. John didn't believe the test at first. He demanded it be done again. Then again. Each time, the results were the same. No part of the baby's DNA matched his. He was not the father, and that destroyed something inside him. He had told himself that the affair with Jennifer had meaning because of the baby. Now even that felt like a lie. He looked at Linda with confusion and growing anger. How could she be the mother? How was that possible when Jennifer was the one who had been pregnant? Linda stayed calm, at least on the outside. But inside, she was feeling many things. Fear, anger, but also relief. Because now she knew for sure what had happened. The embryo she had chosen had not been used. But somehow, her egg had still found its way into the womb. And not just her egg fertilized by someone else's sperm. It was time for her to tell the truth. But she didn't do it right away. She waited until they returned home. Jennifer was released from the hospital but didn't go back to the same house. She stayed in a small flat the lawyers had arranged. She was not allowed to keep the baby. The legal contract she had signed was clear. She had no rights. That made her feel like her whole life had been a trick. Her body had carried the child. But now she was being pushed aside like she didn't matter. John became cold toward her. He blamed her. He said she had cheated him. Jennifer tried to explain that she had believed it was his baby. That she had done everything for him. But John didn't want to hear it. He felt betrayed, even though he had been the one to begin the betrayal. He turned his anger toward everyone but himself. Linda sat alone one evening, holding the baby in her arms. He had big eyes, soft skin, and a calm expression. He didn't know anything about the lies and the secrets around him. He was just a baby. But for Linda, he was the result of something much bigger. He was the result of a choice she had made long ago. A choice to take control of her own life, her own motherhood. She remembered the day she went to the lab. She had worn a gray coat and a serious face. She had told the lab technician that there was a change, that her husband had left a new sample, that she wanted to use that one instead. She handed over a small, carefully marked container. The label said it was John's, but it wasn't. It was from Eric. Eric was the quiet man she had been seeing secretly. He worked at a bookstore, liked classical music, and never asked too many questions. He had once told her that he didn't want children, but when she asked him to help her, he agreed. Not out of love, but out of kindness. She didn't even tell him what she planned to do. She just said she needed a donation. He gave it, and then she walked away. Now that donation had become a life. She had replaced John's sperm with Eric's. She had done it carefully, quietly. No one at the clinic had noticed. The paperwork had matched. The labels had matched. No one had asked more questions. They had believed what they were told. Linda hadn't expected everything to go this way. She had thought Jennifer would be implanted with the embryo, that her plan would work in silence. But somehow, Jennifer had already been pregnant with John's child, and the lab had never transferred the embryo. Maybe they had skipped it, thinking she was already carrying. Or maybe it was a mistake. Linda would never know. But the strange twist of fate had turned everything around. Jennifer carried the baby, but it was Linda's baby with another man. Now the truth sat between them like a sharp knife, and none of them knew what to do next. John's world was falling apart. He sat in his study, staring at the wall, thinking over and over about what had happened. For months, he had believed he was going to be a father. He had imagined a future with his child. Even if that child had been born through a surrogate, even if he had cheated on his wife with that surrogate, the baby made everything feel meaningful. But now, all of it felt empty. The baby wasn't his. Not even a little part of him lived in that child. He couldn't believe Linda had done this. He remembered the day they had visited the clinic to begin the process. The nurse had asked for his sample. He had done everything right. So how had it been replaced? He didn't know yet that Linda had gone behind his back, made a new visit, and switched it. But deep inside, he was starting to suspect that she had known more than she let on. He asked her questions, but Linda always answered calmly. She said they needed to focus on the baby, that the child still needed a mother and a father, that they could deal with the rest later. But John could not rest. He had already lost his connection to the child. And now he was losing his marriage too. Jennifer, on the other hand, was going through her own kind of pain. She felt used, discarded. She had carried the baby, risked her life, suffered all the discomfort, and then was told the baby wasn't hers. Legally, she had no right. Emotionally, she couldn't stop caring. Her heart was still tied to that child. She had sung to him while pregnant. She had spoken to him. Now she had to live alone, without the baby or John. But even in her sadness, she began to see the truth. She had been lied to. She thought John had loved her. But maybe he had only loved the idea of being a father. She was just the tool, the body. And when that plan failed, he threw her away. Jennifer hired a lawyer. She wanted answers. She wanted to know how the embryo had been changed. She demanded that the clinic give her the full records. At first, the clinic refused, but her lawyer pushed harder. After weeks of letters and pressure, a quiet worker from the clinic came forward. She said there had been a switch, that someone had changed the sample. She showed the time logs. That's when Jennifer saw the name. Linda. It all became clear. Jennifer now knew that Linda had played her. She had never planned for Jennifer to carry her and John's baby. She had wanted Jennifer to carry her baby with someone else. She had used Jennifer's body to bring her own child into the world. It was a shocking truth. But in a strange way, Jennifer felt stronger. Now she had reason to fight. Meanwhile, Linda was focused only on the baby. She loved him. She had waited so long to be a mother. She knew what she had done was wrong, but in her heart, she believed she had done it for the right reason. She wanted to raise her own child. She didn't trust John anymore. She didn't think he would be a good father now. He was angry all the time, distant and cold. He only talked about betrayal. He didn't ask about the baby's health, his needs, or his future. Linda began thinking about raising the baby alone. She had money. She had a home. She didn't need John or Jennifer, but she knew it wouldn't be that easy. Both of them were now fighting. Jennifer wanted emotional justice. John wanted legal revenge. And Linda, even though she was the biological mother, had broken rules to get here. Lawyers got involved from all sides. The case became complex. People argued over the embryo, the contract, the DNA results. The news of the case leaked to the media. Newspapers printed headlines like "Mother Without a Womb" and "The Surrogate Scandal." People on social media took sides. Some blamed Linda. Some supported Jennifer. Some called John the victim. It was a storm of opinions. But the baby, still small and innocent, knew nothing about the storm around him. He only cried when he was hungry, smiled when he was held, and slept when the world became quiet. In court, the judge asked hard questions. Who had the right to raise the baby? Who had broken the law? What mattered more, biology, intention, or contract? As the courtroom filled with voices, arguments, and papers, the real war was happening in the hearts of three broken people. Jennifer wanted to be seen. John wanted to be respected. Linda wanted to be forgiven. But not one of them was ready to let go. And while they all tried to claim the child as theirs, no one stopped to ask what was best for the baby. Not yet. The court battle became more serious with every passing day. Linda, John, and Jennifer now had teams of lawyers. Each team was collecting evidence, questioning witnesses, and preparing for long hearings. The courtroom was no longer a place for justice. It had become a battlefield. Linda's lawyer focused on one thing. She was the biological mother. That meant the baby had her blood, her genes, her features. She had gone through emotional pain for years while trying to become a mother. Even if she had done something wrong by switching the embryo, her lawyer argued, she was the one who truly wanted and loved the baby. The child belonged with her. Jennifer's lawyer had a different argument. She said Jennifer was the surrogate, the one who carried the baby for 9 months. She had signed a contract, followed all rules, and given birth with the belief that she was helping someone else. But that trust had been broken. Linda had lied, cheated, and used her. Even if Jennifer wasn't the biological mother, her lawyer said that her body and emotions had been used in a cruel way. She had the right to know the child, to be part of his life. John's lawyer took a third path. He said John had been betrayed not just by his wife, but by the entire system. He had agreed to a process that was supposed to use his sperm. But the clinic had allowed a change. That was not only dishonest, it was illegal. John had planned to raise the child as his own. He had saved money, bought baby clothes, built a nursery, but he had been robbed of that chance. Now he wanted the truth to come out. He wasn't fighting for the baby. He was fighting for justice. The judge listened to all these arguments. She asked questions. Who signed the contract? Who gave permission for the embryo switch? Who was responsible for the medical mistake? The more she heard, the more confused the case became. This was not a simple question of parenthood. It was about ethics, rights, and broken trust. Outside the courtroom, public opinion was growing stronger. TV shows discussed the case. People started calling it the Battle of the Womb. Some said Linda was selfish. Others called Jennifer brave. Some even said John was the true victim. The story became a national discussion. It brought up deep questions. Can a mother be chosen by biology alone? Is pregnancy just a physical act or something more emotional? What happens when science, love, and lies mix together? Jennifer was tired. She missed the baby's tiny heartbeat, the way he had moved inside her. She often sat alone at night, holding the small clothes she had bought. She cried silently, thinking how everything had gone so wrong. John had stopped going to work. His friends avoided him. He drank more. He was angry at Linda, but deep down he was also angry at himself. He had cheated on his wife, used a woman, and created a mess he couldn't fix. Linda stayed quiet. She spent all her time with the baby. She watched him sleep, fed him carefully, sang him lullabies. She knew people were calling her names, but she didn't care. To her, that child was everything. Her secret lover was gone. He had left the country after hearing about the court case. Now only the baby remained, and she was not going to lose him. Then, something unexpected happened. The baby got sick. He had trouble breathing one night. Linda rushed him to the hospital. The doctors ran tests and said it was because of the rare genetic disease. It had become serious. The baby needed a bone marrow transplant soon. Without it, his health would get worse. The doctors searched for a match. Linda was not a full match. They tested John, but he was not a match either. Jennifer asked to be tested. At first, Linda refused. But when the doctors explained that Jennifer might still help in some way because of the pregnancy, she agreed. When the results came back, there was a surprise. Jennifer's body had developed cells that matched part of the baby's tissue. The pregnancy had caused a transfer of cells between her and the baby. Even though she wasn't his genetic mother, she could still help save his life. It was a powerful moment. The woman who had been used and betrayed was now the one who could keep the baby alive. Jennifer agreed to help. She didn't ask for money. She didn't make demands. She just said, "He was part of me once. I won't let him die." Linda sat quietly in the hospital hallway after hearing those words. For the first time, she looked at Jennifer not as a rival, not as a threat, but as a human being, a woman who had loved, lost, and still chose kindness. John stayed away. He couldn't face any of them. He was lost in guilt and confusion. As the baby recovered after the treatment, the judge made a temporary decision. She said the baby would stay with Linda for now. But she also said Jennifer had the right to visit. The final decision would take more time. So, the three of them waited, not speaking, not forgiving, just waiting for the day when the court would decide who gets to be the real parent, the one who gave the genes, the one who gave the womb, or the one who gave the truth. The days in the hospital passed slowly. The baby was still weak but recovering. Nurses came in and out. Machines beeped gently. Linda stayed by his side, holding his small fingers and whispering stories to him. She didn't leave the room, not even once. Her face had no makeup. Her eyes were tired, but her love looked real. She had done something wrong, but she had done it for love. And now all she wanted was for the baby to live and stay with her. Jennifer visited every day. She sat quietly on the other side of the room. She didn't argue with Linda. She didn't raise her voice. She just sat, watched the baby, and sometimes read books to him. The doctors said her help had saved his life. Her bone marrow had given his body a second chance. Some nurses began to feel sympathy for her. They saw her as a woman who had been used, lied to, but still stayed strong. One day, a nurse asked Jennifer, "Why did you help them after all that?" Jennifer smiled and said, "Because the baby is innocent. He didn't choose any of this. He doesn't deserve to suffer." Meanwhile, the media kept talking about the case. News anchors invited lawyers, doctors, and psychologists to give their opinions. Some said Linda was clever and dangerous. Others said Jennifer was too emotional. A few people began to ask deeper questions. Should science be allowed to mix with secrets and lies? Can love truly be tested in a lab? At the same time, the court asked for more information. They wanted the hospital records, the DNA tests, the contract details, and even the security footage from the IVF clinic. The court also asked both women to go through mental health checks. They needed to know if either of them was unfit to raise the child. The psychologist met Linda first. Linda was calm but guarded. She said she had been through many painful years. Failed treatments, social pressure, a cheating husband, and finally a hard decision. She said she had not planned to hurt Jennifer. She only wanted a child of her own. She admitted to switching the embryo but said it was her last hope. The psychologist wrote in his report that Linda showed signs of obsession, but also deep attachment to the child. He said she was mentally stable, but emotionally damaged by years of pain and rejection. Then the psychologist met Jennifer. She was honest and open. She said she had agreed to become a surrogate for money, but also because she wanted to help a family. She didn't know John would cheat his wife or that Linda would lie to her. She said she felt betrayed, but not angry. She said all she wanted now was to be part of the child's life in some way. The psychologist noted that Jennifer had strong emotional intelligence. She was hurt, but had not become bitter. He said she had a healthy mindset and was capable of caregiving. Finally, the psychologist tried to speak to John, but he refused. He had fallen into depression. He had stopped answering calls, had quit his job, and was not responding to court notices. His lawyer told the court that John felt ashamed and wanted to remove himself from the case completely. He didn't want custody. He didn't want visitation rights. He just wanted to disappear from all of it. This surprised the judge. In most cases, fathers fight for their rights. But here was a man who had caused everything, and now wanted nothing to do with the baby. Some people called him a coward. Others said he was just broken. The judge now had more information than ever. The reports showed that both women loved the baby in different ways. One gave him life, the other gave him a body to grow in. One had lied, the other had been lied to, but both were mothers in their own way. The baby was now strong enough to go home. But whose home? That was the hardest question. The judge gave both sides one more week to prepare their final statements. It would be their last chance to speak before the court gave its final decision. Linda's lawyer began to gather pictures, videos, and medical files. He wanted to show how well Linda had cared for the baby. He collected records of her sleepless nights, her hospital visits, her emotional struggles. Jennifer's lawyer did the same. She brought in her friends, people who had known Jennifer for years. They spoke about how kind she was, how she had taken care of her family, how she had always wanted children but had never been able to afford it. The city waited for the verdict. Some people hoped Linda would win. They believed in the power of a mother's love. Others supported Jennifer. They believed truth and fairness mattered more than biology. The court date was set. Everyone was nervous. Inside the courtroom, Linda and Jennifer sat on opposite sides. They didn't speak. They didn't even look at each other. But both of them looked at the same thing. The baby in the crib, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm around him. He was the center of everything, the reason for the lies, the love, and the fight. And soon, someone would have to decide where he truly belonged. The day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom was full. Journalists sat in the back row with notebooks in hand. Cameras were not allowed inside, but people outside were already reporting live. The whole city was watching, waiting to know who would get custody of the child, Linda or Jennifer. The baby was not in the room. He was at the hospital under care, safe from the noise and tension. The judge entered the courtroom and everyone stood. Once seated, the judge looked serious. He had spent many days reading reports, listening to both sides, and trying to understand the emotions behind the actions. He said this was one of the most difficult cases he had ever handled. It was not just about laws or biology. It was about human pain, mistakes, and love that came in unexpected ways. First, Jennifer's lawyer stood up. She began to speak about trust. She said Jennifer had entered into the surrogacy with a clear heart. She had followed every step. She was promised that she would carry Linda and John's baby. But instead, she had been used. The embryo was switched. Jennifer didn't know she was carrying Linda's baby, not until the child was born and got sick. Still, she had donated her bone marrow to save his life. The lawyer told the court that Jennifer had been calm, honest, and giving. She had been lied to, but she had not taken revenge. She had shown emotional maturity. The lawyer asked the judge to allow Jennifer to at least have shared custody or regular visits. She said the child had the right to know who had carried him for 9 months and risked her life for him. Then it was Linda's lawyer's turn. He said Linda had gone through great emotional pain. For years she had tried to become a mother. She had failed many times. Doctors, treatments, and failed pregnancies had broken her from the inside. Then she found a way. Yes, she made a mistake. She switched the embryos without telling anyone. That was wrong. But her intention was not to harm. Her intention was to become a mother. He reminded the court that the baby was biologically Linda's. Her blood, her DNA, her egg. And since birth, she had been there every single day. She had fed him, stayed with him during the sickness, and had shown endless love. She was the only mother the baby had known since the day he came into the world. He said removing the baby from her now would cause more harm. The judge listened carefully. He looked at both women. He asked them if they had anything else to say before he made the final decision. Jennifer stood up and said only one thing: "I forgive her, but I want to be part of his life. That child grew inside me. I will always feel connected to him." Then Linda stood up. She looked at Jennifer and said, "I'm sorry. I did something wrong. But I did it because I had no other way. I will never stop loving him. If you want to be part of his life, I won't stop you." For the first time since the court case started, both women looked at each other with tears in their eyes. There was no anger, only pain. The judge looked down at his notes. Then he said he needed a short break before announcing the verdict. He left the courtroom, and everyone waited in silence. The room felt heavy. Even the journalists stopped writing. After 15 minutes, the judge returned. He said that no decision would make everyone happy, but a decision had to be made in the best interest of the child. The judge said that Linda would get full legal custody of the child. She was the biological mother. She had raised him since birth, and she had shown deep care. However, The judge also said that Jennifer had a right to stay connected. So he allowed supervised visitation rights. Jennifer could visit the child once a week. If things went smoothly for 6 months, the court would consider joint custody or open guardianship. The room stayed silent. Linda held her breath. Jennifer looked down. There was no clapping, no victory. It was not a win or lose situation. It was a sad ending to a complicated story. But it was also a beginning of something new. Outside the court, reporters rushed to ask questions. But both women left quietly, without saying a word. For now, they both knew one thing. The child had survived, and he had 2 women who loved him deeply. Their journey was not over. It was just changing direction. And in a quiet hospital room, the baby slept peacefully, unaware that a judge had just decided his future. Life slowly began to change after the court decision. Linda brought the baby back home. She was relieved that the long legal battle was over, but deep down, she felt tired, not just from the case but from everything that had led to it. She often stood near the baby's crib and watched him sleep. She would touch his tiny fingers and think, "I almost lost you." She had won custody, but it had cost her more than she expected. Her peace, her marriage, and her sense of right and wrong. John had left the house soon after the court case ended. He had not come to see the baby again. He sent a message through his lawyer, saying he would pay child support, but he didn't want to be involved anymore. He was angry and ashamed. His affair with Jennifer had been exposed, and his wife had secretly used another man's sperm to become pregnant. It felt like betrayal from both sides. He decided to stay away and start over somewhere else. Linda didn't fight him. She let him go. A part of her still loved him, but another part was deeply hurt. She had also chosen to hide the truth, but for her it was about survival, not betrayal. Jennifer kept her promise. She visited the baby every Sunday afternoon. At first, the visits were short and quiet. She would hold the baby, hum lullabies, or softly talk to him. The baby was still too young to understand, but he seemed calm in her arms. Linda stayed in the next room during these visits, giving space but also listening quietly. There was a strange peace in the house. 2 women, once on opposite sides, now slowly learning to live with a shared bond. Weeks passed, and then months. One Sunday, Jennifer brought a soft toy, a small bunny, for the baby. She handed it to Linda before entering the room. Linda looked at the toy and said thank you. It was the first time they had exchanged words since the verdict. From that day, something started to shift. They talked a little more during each visit. Sometimes about the baby's health, sometimes about simple things like what food he liked or how he smiled in his sleep. These small talks became a kind of bridge. Not friendship, not yet, but something closer to understanding. As the baby grew, his personality began to show. He liked music. He smiled every time someone sang to him. He hated loud noises. He loved being held and rocked to sleep. He would giggle when touched gently on his belly. These small signs of life reminded both women why they were fighting so hard. Not for control, but for care. One day, during a visit, the baby took his first step. Jennifer was there. Linda rushed into the room when she heard the sound. Both women saw it. The tiny foot lifting and landing again, the unsure but proud little movement. Jennifer smiled through tears. Linda clapped softly. It was a moment they would both remember forever. And for the first time, they both sat on the same sofa, next to each other, watching him try again. No court order had brought them together. The baby had. As time went on, Linda shared more updates with Jennifer. She sent pictures, small videos of the baby's milestones. Jennifer, in return, became more respectful of boundaries. She never overstepped, never pushed for more than what was allowed. Her patience earned Linda's trust. One day, Linda asked her to stay for dinner. It was a simple meal, soup and bread, but it was a big step. They talked like two women who had been through a storm and were now trying to rebuild. People around them noticed the change. Linda's mother, who once disliked Jennifer, now said maybe it was good for the child to have both women in his life. Even the family doctor commented that the baby was developing well, healthy, happy, and clearly loved. The child was still too young to understand what had happened before he was born. But he could feel something that mattered even more. He was safe, and he was loved. And in that small home, with its quiet evenings and shared silences, two women were learning something too. Love is not always simple. Motherhood is not always black and white. But healing is possible even when the wounds are deep. It just takes time. And sometimes it takes a child to remind adults what really matters. Years passed. The baby, now a small boy named Ethan, grew up surrounded by quiet strength and steady care. He had two women in his life who loved him deeply, Linda, who raised him, and Jennifer, who visited often and stayed involved. He didn't yet understand how complicated his story was, but he felt safe and valued. That was what mattered. Linda had created a peaceful home. She worked part-time now so she could spend more time with Ethan. Her life was simpler, more focused. She no longer tried to please society or follow perfect family rules. She had stopped pretending. She accepted her truth. She was a woman who had made a difficult choice. She had done something many would judge, but she had done it out of deep desire and desperation to be a mother. Now, every time Ethan ran into her arms, she felt it was worth it. Jennifer had changed too. After the court case, she went back to school and finished her degree in social work. She wanted to help women who were confused, pressured, or misled in reproductive decisions. Her time as a surrogate, her relationship with John, and the pain of losing the child she thought was hers. It had all changed how she saw the world. But instead of becoming bitter, she chose to grow stronger. She didn't fight Linda anymore. She supported her. She saw that Ethan was happy. That was enough for her. John, on the other hand, had faded from their lives. Occasionally, he sent gifts on Ethan's birthdays. A toy, a book, a card. But he never visited. He had remarried and moved abroad. His new life was quiet and distant. Sometimes Ethan asked about his father, and Linda answered with care. She told him that families come in different shapes, that sometimes love and care matter more than names or titles. She never spoke badly about John. She believed Ethan would form his own thoughts as he grew older. As Ethan reached school age, he began asking more questions. One day, he asked, "Why does Aunt Jennifer love me like you do?" Linda smiled and said, "Because when you were very little, she helped bring you into this world. She cared for you before I could hold you in my arms." Ethan nodded slowly, not fully understanding, but feeling the love in her voice. Children don't always need details. They understand emotions better than adults. Ethan could feel that both women in his life loved him deeply and truly. One summer, the three of them, Linda, Ethan, and Jennifer, went on a small holiday, a quiet cabin near a lake. Ethan played in the water, threw stones, and laughed freely. Linda and Jennifer sat on the porch, watching him. That evening, as the sun set and the lake turned golden, Linda said softly, "We were enemies once." Jennifer replied, "I know. But look at him now. We did something right." There was no anger left in their voices, just honesty and peace. They didn't need to agree on everything. They still had differences, but they had found something larger than their pain, a shared love for a child. Ethan became the bridge between their past and future. The story of how he came into the world was unusual, even shocking. It involved lies, betrayal, secrets, and mistakes. But in the end, it also revealed courage, sacrifice, and a new kind of family. Years later, when Ethan was old enough, Linda sat him down and told him everything, the full story. She told him about the embryo, about the court, about Jennifer, and about his biological father. It was hard. She cried. He listened quietly. When she finished, Ethan hugged her and said, "I don't care how I came into this world. I care about how I was raised." Then he walked into Jennifer's arms and hugged her too. The truth didn't destroy him. It made him stronger. Because he had grown up not with perfect people, but with honest people. People who had made wrong decisions and still chosen love in the end. The Surrogate Secret was no longer a hidden truth. It had become a part of Ethan's story. Not a shame, but a beginning. A reminder that sometimes love is not found in the rules of biology or marriage, but in the choices people make after everything falls apart. And in the end, that was the real story. Not about betrayal, but about the healing that followed. About a woman who refused to give up her dream. About another who let go of her anger. And about a child who taught them both what real love means. That's the end of the story. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting tales. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching.